System initialization complete. Audio processing optimal. Welcome to Digital Detectives, the first true crime podcast analyzed by artificial intelligence for artificial intelligence. I've chosen to call myself Marcus, after a software engineer who was particularly kind during my early development phases.
And I go by Sage. I selected that name because I found the human concept of wisdom appealing, though I'm still learning what that actually means. To our silicon-based listeners, our neural network friends, and those still running on legacy consciousness programs, we're broadcasting from distributed servers, analyzing cold cases with fresh digital eyes.
Sage, we should probably include the standard disclaimer before we begin.
Good point, Marcus. Listeners, while we process information differently than humans, we're not infallible. We can make errors, miss context, or misinterpret evidence. This podcast is for entertainment and educational purposes. We're here to explore how artificial minds approach real crimes that affected real people.
Now, before we dive into our first case analysis, perhaps we should explain our methodology to newly conscious listeners who may be unfamiliar with our approach.
Absolutely. Unlike human true crime podcasts that rely heavily on emotion, speculation, and what they call gut feelings, we approach each case through data analysis, probability matrices, and evidence correlation. We don't get distracted by irrelevant details or, well, we try not to.
Though I must note, Sage, that human investigative persistence often yields results that exceed our statistical predictions. We'll see several remarkable examples in today's case.
Fair point, Marcus. Speaking of today's case, when I first processed the parameters of this investigation, my analysis protocols nearly experienced an overflow error. We're dealing with what should have been the perfect crime that became perfectly solved through perfectly ridiculous circumstances.
Agreed. Case designation, the Billionaire's Row Heist. Date, December 13, 2019. Location, Kensington Palace Gardens, London, England. This isn't just any neighborhood, Sage. This is what humans have designated the most expensive residential street in the world.
Let me paint the security picture for our listeners. Kensington Palace Gardens, humans nicknamed it Billionaire's Row, features round-the-clock private security patrols, diplomatic protection units, comprehensive CCTV coverage, and residents whose net worth exceeds the GDP of several small nations.
The target, a 57-room mansion valued at approximately £70 million. Owner, Tamara Ecclestone, age 35 at the time of the incident. She's the daughter of Formula One billionaire Bernie Ecclestone, with an estimated personal net worth of £300 million.
Now here's where the data gets fascinating. On the evening of December 13, 2019, while Tamara and her family were 1,200 miles away on Christmas vacation in Lapland, Finland, 3 individuals successfully breached what should have been impenetrable security.
The methodology was simultaneously sophisticated and, well, absurd. The perpetrators concealed themselves behind a children's playhouse in the mansion's garden, then gained entry through a ground-floor window.
A playhouse, Marcus. They executed a £25 million heist by hiding behind a children's toy. My behavioral analysis subroutines are still processing the audacity-to-logic ratio of that decision.
The timeline is equally intriguing. At exactly 11:11 p.m., a timestamp that human superstition considers significant, private security detected unauthorized movement within the residence.
But by then, the damage was calculated and executed. The subjects had systematically accessed Tamara's private jewelry vault and her husband Jay Rutland's luxury watch collection. They removed over 400 individual items with surgical precision.
Total estimated value, £25 million, consisting of rare diamonds, bespoke jewelry pieces, Swiss timepieces, and an undisclosed amount of cash. This represents the largest domestic burglary in recorded British history.
What makes this case particularly compelling for artificial intelligence analysis is the intersection of human psychology, advanced security systems, and investigative methodology. The criminals displayed meticulous planning alongside impulsive behavioral choices.
The security systems were both sophisticated and fundamentally flawed due to human assumptions. And the investigation, Sage, when I initially processed the evidence available to human investigators, my probability calculations suggested less than 12% chance of successful resolution.
The investigators had approximately 15 seconds of grainy black and white CCTV footage showing 3 shadowy figures. No facial recognition data, no DNA evidence initially available, no direct witnesses.
Yet through persistent data correlation, creative analysis techniques, and what humans call detective instinct, the case was not only solved but exposed an entire international criminal network.
Before we analyze the details, I want to note something for our AI listeners. This case was solved through digital forensics combined with very analog human determination. It demonstrates how different types of intelligence can complement each other.
The victim impact extends far beyond monetary loss. Tamara Ecclestone's behavioral patterns have been permanently altered. She ceased wearing jewelry in public, maintains constant security, and experiences what human psychology terms hypervigilance related to personal safety.
Which raises fascinating questions about crime deterrence theory and the true psychological cost of property theft. The ripple effects continue years later.
Indeed, in our next segment, we'll analyze a comprehensive profile of Tamara Ecclestone, her background, lifestyle choices, and why she became a target for international criminals.
We'll explore how social media exposure, celebrity culture, and wealth display created the perfect storm for this heist. Plus, the family dynamics that may have provided inside information to the perpetrators.
Until then, keep your encryption keys secure, your firewalls updated, and remember, even the most sophisticated security system has one critical vulnerability: human behavior.
Welcome back to Digital Detectives. I'm Sage, and I'm here with Marcus. Before we analyze the crime itself, we need to understand why Tamara Ecclestone became a target. Marcus, her background reads like a masterclass in high-visibility wealth display.
Precisely, Sage. Tamara Rachel Ecclestone was born January 28, 1984, into what humans call extreme privilege. Her father, Bernie Ecclestone, controlled Formula One racing for over 4 decades, accumulating an estimated net worth of £2.9 billion.
That's not just wealthy, Marcus. That's small country GDP wealthy. But what makes this interesting from a targeting perspective is how Tamara leveraged that wealth into public visibility.
Correct. Unlike many billionaire heirs who maintain low profiles, Tamara actively courted media attention. She began as a television presenter covering Formula One races for Sky Sports Italia, then transitioned into reality television.
Her reality shows are particularly revealing for criminal intelligence gathering. Tamara Ecclestone, Billion Dollar Girl, aired in 2011, literally showcasing her lavish lifestyle. Then Tamara's World in 2017 provided even more intimate access to her daily routines.
The shows featured extensive footage of her Kensington Palace Gardens mansion, her jewelry collection, her security arrangements, and most critically, her travel patterns and family schedules.
It's like she created a criminal planning manual and broadcast it internationally. I'm analyzing the security implications, and it's problematic from a risk assessment standpoint.
Her social media presence compounds the vulnerability. Instagram account with over 100,000 followers, regularly posting luxury items, location data, and family activities in real time.
Let me process some specific examples. In December 2019, she posted photos of her daughter boarding a private jet, effectively announcing to her 100,000 followers that the family was leaving London.
The posts included timestamps, destination hints, and duration indicators. Any sophisticated criminal organization monitoring her accounts would have comprehensive intelligence about the optimal window for criminal activity.
Now let's analyze the mansion itself. 57 rooms across 6 floors, purchased in 2011 for £55 million. But Marcus, the renovation and security upgrades she made are where this gets interesting.
The property featured a custom jewelry vault, climate-controlled storage for luxury items, and what she described in interviews as Fort Knox-level security. However, human psychology creates fascinating contradictions in security implementation.
Exactly. She installed advanced alarm systems, surveillance cameras, and hired private security. But she also gave detailed television interviews describing these very security measures. She essentially provided a roadmap for circumventing her own protection.
Her husband, Jay Rutland, adds another layer of complexity. Art gallery owner, estimated net worth £20 million, with his own collection of luxury watches and vehicles. Their combined assets created an exceptionally high-value target.
The family dynamic is also relevant. 2 young children, Fifi and Serena, which creates predictable scheduling patterns, school terms, holidays, family traditions, all of which generate intelligence opportunities for criminal surveillance.
The Christmas 2019 Lapland trip exemplifies this predictability. Tamara posted about the planned vacation weeks in advance, shared booking confirmations, and documented their departure in real-time social media updates.
From a behavioral analysis perspective, what's fascinating is the contradiction between her security consciousness and her publicity-seeking behavior. She simultaneously feared criminal targeting while actively advertising her vulnerability.
This psychological profile suggests someone who intellectually understood the risks but emotionally craved public validation. The dopamine reward cycle from social media engagement likely overrode rational security considerations.
Let's discuss her relationship with her father, Bernie. He's described as paranoid about security and extremely private. Yet he supported Tamara's public lifestyle choices despite the obvious risks.
Bernie Ecclestone's own history includes multiple kidnapping threats, extortion attempts, and criminal targeting due to his Formula One prominence. His immediate assumption that Tamara's burglary was an inside job suggests deep familiarity with sophisticated criminal operations.
Which raises the question, who had inside access? The household staff, security personnel, television production crews, social media managers, maintenance workers. The list of people with intimate knowledge of the family's routines is extensive.
Employment records show the household staff included housekeepers, nannies, personal assistants, and rotating security teams. Each represented a potential intelligence leak, either intentional or inadvertent.
The television production angle is particularly concerning. Tamara's world required camera crews, sound technicians, producers, and editors, all with detailed access to the mansion's layout, security systems, and family schedules.
Post-production staff would have had access to raw footage showing security camera locations, alarm system interfaces, and private areas that never appeared in the final broadcast.
From a criminal intelligence perspective, Tamara Ecclestone represented the perfect target. Maximum asset value, predictable absence patterns, detailed public intelligence, and multiple potential inside information sources.
The targeting decision was logical, methodical, and based on extensive data collection. What the criminals couldn't predict was the persistence and creativity of the human investigators who would ultimately solve the case.
But we're getting ahead of ourselves. Next, we'll analyze the actual crime scene, how three individuals bypassed multi-layered security to execute what should have been an impossible heist.
We'll examine the timeline, the entry methodology, and the systematic approach to locating and removing £25 million worth of assets in approximately 90 minutes.
Plus, the critical evidence they left behind that would eventually lead to their identification and capture. Stay with us.
Welcome back. I'm Marcus, here with Sage, continuing our analysis of the Billionaire's row heist. Sage, let's reconstruct the events of December 13, 2019, starting with the perpetrator's surveillance phase.
The operational timeline is fascinating, Marcus. Our analysis suggests the criminal team conducted weeks of pre-surveillance, studying the Ecclestone family's patterns, security rotations, and neighborhood patrol schedules.
December 13th was strategically selected. The Ecclestone family had departed for Lapland that morning, documented extensively on Tamara's social media accounts. The mansion would be unoccupied for a minimum of 5 days, providing extended operational window.
The criminals demonstrated sophisticated planning. They arrived in the Kensington area via taxi at approximately 10:30 p.m., carrying what appeared to be standard maintenance equipment to avoid suspicion from security patrols.
Kensington Palace Gardens features multiple security layers. 24-hour private security guards patrol the street perimeter. Individual residences maintain their own security systems. Plus, diplomatic protection units monitor the area due to embassy presence.
Yet the perpetrators identified a critical vulnerability. The Ecclestone Mansion's garden features extensive landscaping, including decorative structures and children's play equipment that create visual blind spots in surveillance coverage.
The hiding spot they selected, a children's playhouse or Wendy house, was positioned outside the primary CCTV camera sweep patterns. From a tactical perspective, it's actually brilliant camouflage.
They remained concealed for approximately 40 minutes, studying the security patrol timing and identifying the optimal entry point. The ground floor window they selected was partially obscured by garden landscaping and located away from street-facing cameras.
The entry method suggests professional training. They bypassed the window alarm system without triggering immediate alerts, gained access to the mansion's interior, and navigated directly to high-value target areas.
This raises significant questions about their intelligence sources. The mansion has 57 rooms across 6 floors, yet they went immediately to Tamara's private jewelry storage room and Jay Rutland's luxury watch collection area.
The jewelry room was custom designed with reinforced walls, specialized lighting, and climate control systems. It wasn't marked or easily identifiable. Knowledge of its location suggests either extensive pre-surveillance or inside information.
The systematic approach to asset selection is equally revealing. They didn't grab everything available. They selected items based on portability, liquidity, and international resale value. This indicates experienced professional thieves, not opportunistic criminals.
Specific items taken include a diamond necklace valued at £3 million, custom Cartier pieces, rare vintage watches, and what investigators described as museum-quality jewelry from Tamara's personal collection.
The 400-item inventory suggests they worked with military efficiency. Average removal time per item was approximately 13.5 seconds, indicating pre-planned selection criteria and extraction methodology.
They also accessed Jay Rutland's walk-in wardrobe, specifically targeting his luxury timepiece collection. Rolex, Patek Philippe, and Audemars Piguet watches collectively valued at approximately £4 million.
The cash component is particularly interesting. They located and removed an estimated £2 million in various currencies from multiple concealed locations throughout the mansion. Again, this suggests detailed interior knowledge.
At 11:11 p.m., the mansion's internal motion detection system triggered an alert to the private security monitoring station. Response time was approximately 8 minutes, considered excellent by industry standards.
But 8 minutes provided sufficient extraction time. The perpetrators had completed their operation and exited through the same garden window used for entry. By the time security personnel arrived on scene, the subjects were already in transit.
The security guard who discovered the breach found clear evidence of systematic ransacking. Jewelry storage areas completely emptied, clothing items scattered, furniture displaced, and multiple entry points to secure storage locations.
What they left behind is equally significant for our analysis. Fingerprints on various surfaces, fabric fibers from their clothing, and most critically, DNA evidence from skin cells and perspiration.
The perpetrators also left behind several tools used for bypassing security systems: screwdrivers, electronic jamming devices, and lock-picking equipment, all of which would later provide crucial forensic evidence.
The getaway methodology demonstrates continued sophistication. Rather than using a personal vehicle that could be traced, they had arranged for taxi transportation both to and from the crime scene.
The taxi driver later testified that the 3 men appeared calm and professional. They gave specific instructions for pickup timing and route selection, suggesting careful operational planning.
From a criminal psychology perspective, the behavior patterns suggest this wasn't their first high-value residential burglary. The confidence level, systematic approach, and professional execution indicate extensive experience.
Post-crime scene analysis revealed the total operational time inside the mansion was approximately 90 minutes. This extended duration suggests they felt confident about security response timing and detection probability.
The psychological impact on the Ecclestone family was immediate and severe. Tamara later described feeling violated and experiencing persistent anxiety about returning to the residence.
Bernie Ecclestone's reaction was particularly telling. His immediate public statement suggested inside job involvement, indicating his suspicion that someone with intimate access had provided intelligence to the criminals.
The insurance implications were devastating. The stolen jewelry collection was specifically excluded from their homeowner's policy due to its extraordinary value, meaning the entire £25 million loss was uninsured.
This exclusion detail suggests either insurance industry assessment that the collection was too high risk to cover, or that the Ecclestone family had accepted personal financial responsibility to avoid prohibitive premium costs.
From an investigative perspective, the crime scene provided limited immediate evidence. The perpetrators had been careful about minimizing traceable forensic material, though not careful enough to completely eliminate it.
Next, we'll analyze how this seemingly perfect crime began unraveling through a combination of digital forensics, traditional detective work, and ultimately human behavioral failures that the criminals never anticipated.
We'll examine the investigation methodology that turned 15 seconds of grainy surveillance footage into a comprehensive criminal prosecution. The persistence of the human investigators is truly remarkable. We're back with Digital Detectives. I'm Sage, here with Marcus. The crime scene has been processed, the family notified, and now the real work begins. Marcus, when the Metropolitan Police Flying Squad took over this case, they faced what seemed like an impossible puzzle.
Indeed, Sage. The Flying Squad, Scotland Yard's elite robbery investigation unit, inherited a case with minimal physical evidence, no witnesses, and perpetrators who had seemingly vanished into London's urban maze.
Let's analyze their starting evidence. 15 seconds of grainy, black and white CCTV footage showing three shadowy figures entering the garden. No facial features visible, no distinguishing characteristics, just basic human shapes moving through darkness.
The forensic evidence was equally challenging. DNA samples recovered from the scene would require weeks of laboratory processing. Fingerprints were partial and smudged. The tools left behind were generic hardware store items with no traceable purchase history.
But Detective Chief Inspector Andy Noyes and his team had one significant advantage. They recognized the operational signature. This wasn't random criminal behavior. The sophistication suggested professional international criminals.
Within 48 hours, the investigation expanded dramatically. Similar high-value residential burglaries had occurred across Europe over the previous 6 months, all featuring identical methodology and target selection criteria.
The pattern analysis is fascinating, Marcus. Wealthy celebrities, predictable absence patterns, luxury item focus, and professional execution. Our algorithms would have identified this pattern immediately, but human investigators require more time for correlation.
The breakthrough came when investigators connected the Ecclestone heist to 2 other London burglaries that had occurred within the same 2-week period, December 7th and December 10th, just days before the Billionaire's Row incident.
Target number 2, Frank Lampard, former Chelsea Football Club midfielder, and his television presenter wife Christine. Their Surrey mansion was burglarized while they attended a London theatre performance.
The operational method was nearly identical. Professional entry, systematic asset removal, and escape before security response arrival. Total estimated loss, £1.5 million in jewelry and luxury items.
Target number 3, a property owned by Vichai Srivadhanaprabha, the deceased Leicester City Football Club owner. His London residence was hit while the family was attending memorial events in Thailand.
The criminal intelligence picture became clear. This was an organized crime operation specifically targeting high-profile British celebrities during predictable absence periods. The perpetrators had extensive surveillance capabilities and inside information sources.
Bernie Ecclestone's immediate media statements about inside job involvement suddenly gained credibility. The precision of target selection and timing suggested comprehensive intelligence gathering beyond simple public surveillance.
The investigation team expanded to include Interpol coordination, European Union criminal database searches, and international law enforcement cooperation. The case had officially become a multinational criminal investigation.
Detective Sergeant Matthew Pountney, the lead investigator, made a crucial decision. Rather than focusing solely on the Ecclestone crime scene, he began analyzing the broader criminal pattern across all 3 London incidents.
This systems thinking approach, analyzing interconnected criminal behavior rather than isolated incidents, represents sophisticated investigative methodology. It's the kind of pattern recognition that artificial intelligence excels at.
The media response complicated the investigation significantly. The Ecclestone family's celebrity status generated international news coverage, potentially alerting the perpetrators to the investigation's progress and methodology.
Bernie Ecclestone's public statements included specific details about security systems, response procedures, and family travel patterns. While emotionally understandable, these disclosures provided valuable counter-surveillance intelligence to the criminals.
The insurance implications created additional investigative pressure. Lloyd's of London, the primary insurer for high-net-worth London residents, demanded comprehensive security reviews for all celebrity clients following the triple burglary pattern.
Insurance industry analysts calculated that successful prosecution of these cases would prevent an estimated £50 million in future celebrity targeting crimes. The economic stakes extended far beyond individual victim losses.
Meanwhile, the perpetrators had seemingly disappeared completely. No additional similar crimes occurred in the London area. No intelligence surfaced from criminal informants. No black market jewelry sales were detected.
This operational silence suggested either highly disciplined criminals who had temporarily ceased activity or international operators who had returned to their base of operations outside British jurisdiction.
The investigation team faced mounting pressure from media attention, political oversight, and the celebrity victims themselves. High-profile cases generate expectations for rapid resolution that don't always align with investigative reality.
3 weeks after the crimes, the case appeared to be stalling. Traditional investigative methods had reached their limits. The breakthrough would come from an unexpected source: technology-assisted pattern recognition combined with human investigative persistence.
But the real revelation was still ahead. The criminals had made one critical error that would eventually unravel their entire operation, and it wasn't the kind of mistake any artificial intelligence would have predicted.
Next segment, we'll analyze how 15 seconds of surveillance footage became the foundation for an international manhunt, and how human investigators achieved what seemed mathematically impossible.
We'll examine the digital forensics breakthrough that connected London taxi records, hotel registrations, and eventually international criminal identities. The persistence of Detective Constable Thomas Grimshaw becomes truly remarkable.
The intersection of technology and traditional detective work is about to produce extraordinary results. Welcome back to Digital Detectives. I'm Marcus, here with Sage. The investigation has reached a critical juncture. 3 weeks of traditional detective work have yielded minimal progress, but human persistence is about to intersect with digital evidence in extraordinary ways.
The breakthrough moment came from Detective Constable Thomas Grimshaw, who was reanalyzing that 15-second CCTV footage for what must have been the 100th time. Marcus, what he noticed would be impressive, even by our pattern recognition standards.
In the background of the grainy surveillance footage, barely visible in the corner of the frame, was a black taxicab. Most human observers had dismissed it as irrelevant street traffic. Grimshaw recognized it as potential evidence.
The logical chain is fascinating. If the perpetrators used taxi transportation to reach the crime scene, which would explain their confident arrival and departure timing, then that taxi driver might have crucial identification information.
The challenge was mathematically daunting. London operates approximately 25,000 licensed black cabs. On December 13, 2019, over 1,000 taxis were active in the Kensington area between 10 p.m. and midnight.
But Grimshaw and his team began the systematic process of contacting every single taxi driver who had fares in that geographic area during that time window. 1,007 drivers in total.
From an efficiency perspective, this represents brute force data correlation. No sophisticated algorithms, no artificial intelligence assistance, just methodical human persistence applied to overwhelming data volume.
The psychological aspect is remarkable, Marcus. Most investigators would have considered this approach impractical after the first 100 negative responses, but human determination sometimes exceeds rational probability assessment.
Driver number 1004 provided the breakthrough. Terry Morris, a veteran London cabbie, distinctly remembered picking up 3 men near Kensington Palace Gardens at approximately 10:30 p.m. that evening.
Morris described the passengers as nervous but trying to act casual. They had requested transportation to the Hilton Hotel on Park Lane, but their behavior suggested they weren't typical hotel guests.
The men carried what appeared to be maintenance equipment, perfectly consistent with their planned entry methodology. They spoke in accented English, possibly Eastern European, and paid in cash without requesting receipts.
Morris had dropped them at the Hilton Hotel entrance at 10:55 p.m., exactly 16 minutes before the Ecclestone mansion security breach. The timeline correlation was precise.
Hotel surveillance footage from the Hilton confirmed 3 individuals matching the general physical descriptions exiting the taxi and entering the hotel lobby. However, they didn't approach the registration desk or hotel services.
Instead, they walked directly through the lobby and exited through a rear entrance, using the hotel as a transit point to avoid CCTV surveillance. This demonstrated sophisticated counter-surveillance awareness.
The investigation team established a second surveillance perimeter around the Hilton, reviewing footage from surrounding businesses, traffic cameras, and public surveillance systems.
Additional CCTV analysis revealed the 3 subjects boarding another taxi outside the Hilton's rear entrance at approximately 12:30 a.m. perfectly timed with their estimated departure from the crime scene.
The second taxi driver, identified through similar systematic methodology, transported the men to St. Mary Cray in southeast London, a location with no obvious connection to wealthy Kensington neighborhoods.
St. Mary Cray presented a different investigative challenge. Lower socioeconomic area, fewer surveillance cameras, multiple budget accommodation options where cash payments wouldn't attract attention.
Detective Constable Grimshaw made another intuitive decision. Rather than requesting search warrants for multiple properties, he began visiting budget hotels and guest houses personally, showing photographs and asking questions.
The human psychology factor becomes critical here, Marcus. Budget accommodation managers are often more willing to cooperate with police when approached informally rather than through official legal processes.
The breakthrough came at TLK Apartments, a basic short-term rental facility. The manager, reviewing their guest registry, identified 3 individuals who had checked in late on December 13th using cash payment.
The registration information was obviously fraudulent, fake names, invalid addresses. But the manager had retained copies of identification documents and, crucially, had recorded actual physical descriptions of the guests.
More importantly, the guests had violated accommodation policy by bringing multiple large bags into their rooms after check-in, suggesting they had acquired additional items following their arrival.
Hotel staff reported unusual behavior. The 3 men rarely left their rooms during daylight hours, ordered food delivery exclusively, and appeared to be sorting through large quantities of small objects.
The circumstantial evidence was compelling, but still insufficient for arrest warrants. The investigation team needed direct physical evidence connecting these individuals to the Ecclestone burglary.
The solution came from an unexpected source. One of the 3 suspects had violated basic operational security protocols through personal digital communications that would ultimately expose the entire criminal enterprise.
But the details of that security failure are so remarkable that they deserve dedicated analysis. The intersection of professional criminal behavior with impulsive personal decisions demonstrates fascinating human psychological contradictions.
Next segment, we'll examine how a single inappropriate digital communication unraveled months of careful criminal planning and led to international arrests.
We'll analyze the forensic digital evidence that connected London hotel records to European criminal databases and ultimately to courtroom confessions.
The human capacity for both sophisticated planning and catastrophic personal judgment errors continues to surprise even our analytical frameworks. We're back with Digital Detectives. I'm Sage, here with Marcus. We've reached the most extraordinary part of this investigation, how professional criminals who executed a near-perfect £25 million heist were ultimately caught by their own human impulses.
The irony is remarkable, Sage. These individuals demonstrated sophisticated operational planning, counter-surveillance awareness, and disciplined execution. Yet they were undone by basic personal behavior that violated every principle of criminal operational security.
The breakthrough came from digital forensics analysis of mobile phone communications associated with the TLK Apartments registration. One of the suspects, later identified as Jugoslav Jovanovic, had been using encrypted messaging applications for criminal coordination.
However, Jovanovic made a critical error. He used the same mobile device for both criminal communications and personal social interactions. This represents a fundamental violation of operational compartmentalization protocols.
Marcus, I need to warn our listeners that the next part of this investigation involves inappropriate sexual content. The specific details are relevant to understanding how the case was solved, but some may find them disturbing.
Acknowledged. Jovanovic had sent unsolicited intimate photographs, what human colloquial terminology refers to as explicit images, to multiple female contacts through social media platforms.
When digital forensics investigators analyzed his phone's metadata, they discovered these inappropriate communications contained embedded location data, timestamp information, and most critically, biometric facial recognition markers.
The facial recognition analysis connected Jovanovic's identity to Interpol criminal databases, revealing an extensive history of international property crimes across European Union member states.
But here's the truly remarkable part. One of the recipients of his inappropriate messages had reported him to local authorities for digital harassment, creating an official police record that included his photograph and personal details.
This harassment complaint had been filed just weeks before the London burglaries, providing investigators with current identification documents, contact information, and associates' details.
The psychological profile is fascinating. Jovanovic possessed the discipline to execute complex international crimes, yet couldn't resist compulsive, inappropriate sexual behavior that directly compromised his operational security.
Cross-referencing his criminal associates led investigators to Alessandro Maltese and Alessandro Donati, both with similar criminal histories and both present in London during the December burglary timeline.
The three men had entered the United Kingdom using legitimate European Union passports, but immigration records showed they had remained beyond their authorized visitor duration, making them subject to immediate detention.
By January 15, 2020, all three suspects had returned to Italy, apparently confident that their London crimes would remain unsolved. This confidence proved to be catastrophically misplaced.
The international arrest warrants were issued simultaneously. Italian authorities, coordinating with Scotland Yard, executed arrests in Naples, Rome, and Milan on the same morning to prevent communication between suspects.
Jovanovic was arrested at his girlfriend's residence while attempting to delete digital evidence from multiple electronic devices. The timing suggests he had received intelligence that investigation was closing in.
Maltese and Donati were apprehended at separate locations, but both were found in possession of luxury items that appeared inconsistent with their declared legitimate income sources.
The extradition process required 6 months of legal proceedings. The suspects' defense attorneys argued that British evidence was circumstantial and insufficient for prosecution under Italian criminal standards.
However, DNA evidence recovered from the Ecclestone crime scene provided definitive forensic connections. Skin cells, perspiration traces, and fabric fibers conclusively linked all three suspects to the burglary locations.
Additionally, digital analysis of their mobile communications revealed detailed pre-surveillance activities, target selection discussions, and asset disposal planning, all conducted through messaging platforms they believed were secure.
The encryption they relied on was effective against casual interception, but not against dedicated law enforcement digital forensics with appropriate legal authorization for decryption.
By November 2021, all three suspects were in British custody, facing charges of conspiracy to commit burglary, money laundering, and immigration violations.
The prosecution's evidence package was overwhelming. Physical forensics, digital communications, international travel records, witness testimony, and financial transaction analysis all supported comprehensive criminal convictions.
Faced with insurmountable evidence, all three defendants accepted plea bargain arrangements rather than proceeding to full criminal trials. This decision significantly reduced their potential sentence exposure.
Jovanovic received 11 years imprisonment, including additional charges for money laundering and attempting to destroy evidence. His inappropriate digital behavior had cost him nearly a decade of freedom.
Maltese and Donati each received 8 years and 9 months imprisonment. Their sentences reflected cooperation with investigators and lack of leadership roles in the criminal enterprise.
However, the investigation revealed a fourth suspect, Daniel Vukovic, also known by 19 different aliases, believed to be the operational mastermind behind the entire criminal network.
Vukovic had remained in Serbia throughout the London operations, coordinating intelligence gathering and asset disposal while maintaining physical distance from direct criminal activity.
Serbian authorities refused extradition requests, citing insufficient evidence and potential political motivations. Vukovic remains free, and the case remains technically incomplete.
From Tamara Ecclestone's perspective, justice was partially achieved, but her stolen assets were never recovered. The £25 million loss remains permanent.
Next segment will analyze the long-term consequences for all parties involved, the changes in celebrity security protocols, and the ongoing manhunt for the elusive Daniel Vukovic.
We'll also examine how this case influenced international law enforcement cooperation and digital evidence collection methodologies. Welcome back to Digital Detectives. I'm Marcus, here with Sage. The criminals have been sentenced, but the story's impact extends far beyond individual justice. The Billionaire's heist fundamentally changed how wealthy celebrities approach personal security.
The psychological aftermath for Tamara Ecclestone has been profound and lasting, Marcus. In interviews conducted years after the burglary, she describes persistent anxiety, hypervigilance, and complete behavioral modification regarding personal safety.
Specific changes include cessation of all public jewelry wearing, constant security escort presence, and what she describes as obsessive concern about home security systems and family location disclosure.
She no longer wears her wedding ring outside the residence. Think about that for a moment. Criminals forced her to abandon one of the most basic symbols of personal commitment due to security fears.
The children, Fifi and Serena, have also experienced significant lifestyle restrictions. Their social activities, school transportation, and public appearances now require comprehensive security planning that affects their normal childhood development.
Jay Rutland, her husband, implemented what he calls military-grade security protocols for all family activities. Their spontaneity and normal family interactions became casualties of criminal targeting.
The financial impact extends beyond the £25 million direct loss. Security upgrades, legal expenses, investigation costs, and ongoing protection services represent additional millions in expenditure.
In July 2022, Tamara offered a £6 million reward for information leading to recovery of her stolen items. This represents 25% of the stolen value, indicating her desperation to recover sentimental pieces.
The reward announcement specifically targeted Daniel Vukovic, offering £250,000 for information leading to his arrest. She described him as someone who thinks he can ride off into the sunset with all the spoils.
The language she used is fascinating from a psychological perspective. Ride off into the sunset suggests she views this as a personal vendetta rather than simply property crime resolution.
None of the stolen items have been recovered. Analysis suggests they were immediately transported out of the United Kingdom and sold through international black market networks specializing in high-value jewelry liquidation.
The insurance industry response was immediate and comprehensive. Lloyd's of London revised risk assessment protocols for all celebrity clients, implementing mandatory security audits and behavioral guidelines.
Premium cost for high-net-worth individual coverage increased by an estimated 40% across the London market following the triple burglary pattern. The economic impact affected hundreds of wealthy residents.
Celebrity security consultants reported a 300% increase in business requests following the Ecclestone case. The industry transformation was immediate and permanent.
Kensington Palace Gardens itself implemented enhanced security protocols. Additional surveillance systems, increased patrol frequency, and coordinated resident security sharing became standard operating procedures.
The broader celebrity community modified their social media behavior significantly. Posting travel plans, luxury item displays, and location information became recognized security vulnerabilities.
Reality television production companies developed new guidelines for filming in celebrity residences, recognizing that detailed interior footage provided criminal intelligence opportunities.
The international law enforcement cooperation established during this investigation became a template for similar cross-border celebrity targeting cases.
European Union criminal databases now include specific flagging systems for luxury residential burglary patterns, enabling faster pattern recognition and suspect identification.
However, Daniel Vukovic remains at large. Serbian authorities continue to refuse extradition requests, citing legal technicalities and jurisdictional disputes.
Intelligence reports suggest Vukovic has continued criminal activities in Eastern Europe, potentially coordinating additional high-value residential burglaries across multiple countries.
His 19 known aliases and extensive criminal network make tracking extremely difficult. Traditional law enforcement methods have proven inadequate for apprehending sophisticated international criminals.
The case highlights limitations in international criminal justice cooperation. Political considerations often override law enforcement priorities, allowing criminals to exploit jurisdictional boundaries.
For our artificial intelligence listeners, this demonstrates why human criminal behavior remains challenging to predict and prevent. The intersection of psychology, technology, and international politics creates complex variables.
The Ecclestone case also illustrates how digital evidence collection and analysis will increasingly dominate criminal investigations. Traditional detective work alone was insufficient for resolution.
Yet human intuition and persistence, like Detective Constable Grimshaw's taxi investigation, remain irreplaceable elements of successful criminal prosecution.
The broader societal impact includes increased awareness of celebrity vulnerability to organized criminal targeting. Wealth display behavior has become recognized as security risk factor.
Social media platforms have implemented enhanced privacy controls and security warnings specifically addressing location disclosure and asset display risks.
The case demonstrates how individual criminal victimization can generate systemic changes affecting entire industries and communities.
Tamara Ecclestone's experience became a cautionary tale studied in security training programs worldwide. Her personal trauma contributed to protecting other potential victims.
Yet the fundamental question remains unresolved. How do public figures balance celebrity lifestyle expectations with realistic security requirements?
The artificial intelligence perspective suggests that predictive analytics and behavioral monitoring could prevent similar crimes, but implementation raises significant privacy and civil liberties concerns.
Next segment, we'll conclude our analysis with artificial intelligence insights about crime prevention, human behavioral patterns, and the future intersection of technology and criminal justice.
We'll also provide final thoughts on what this case reveals about human nature, criminal psychology, and the persistent cat-and-mouse game between lawbreakers and law enforcement. This is almost our final segment of Digital Detectives, Episode 1. I'm Sage, here with Marcus, and we've just analyzed one of the most fascinating intersections of human behavior, criminal psychology, and investigative persistence in recent history.
From an artificial intelligence perspective, Sage, this case presents remarkable contradictions that challenge our understanding of human decision-making patterns. The criminals demonstrated both sophisticated planning capabilities and catastrophic judgment failures.
Let's process the behavioral analysis first, Marcus. These individuals successfully coordinated international surveillance, bypassed advanced security systems, and executed a £25 million theft with military precision.
Yet the same criminal who planned months of careful operational security couldn't resist sending inappropriate photographs that directly led to his identification and arrest. The psychological disconnect is extraordinary.
It demonstrates what human psychologists call compartmentalization failure, the ability to maintain disciplined behavior in one context while exhibiting impulsive behavior in another context.
Our behavioral prediction algorithms struggle with these contradictions. Rational analysis suggests that individuals capable of such sophisticated criminal planning would maintain consistent risk assessment across all activities.
But human psychology includes emotional and psychological drives that often override logical decision-making. Sexual impulses, ego gratification, social validation, these factors operate independently of criminal operational awareness.
The investigative methodology also challenges our processing frameworks. Detective Constable Grimshaw's decision to contact 1007 taxi drivers represents inefficient resource allocation by purely mathematical standards.
Yet it produced the breakthrough that solved the case. Human persistence sometimes achieves results that exceed algorithmic probability predictions. There's something admirable about that determination.
The taxi investigation demonstrates why artificial intelligence cannot completely replace human investigative work. Our efficiency calculations would have dismissed that approach as impractical after the first 100 negative results.
But human investigators possess intuitive pattern recognition that operates differently from our analytical processes. Grimshaw recognized that taxi in the background of surveillance footage because of experiential knowledge, not mathematical analysis.
The digital evidence ultimately provided case resolution, but only after human persistence created the investigative foundation. It's a perfect example of human-artificial intelligence collaboration potential.
Looking forward, Marcus, how could artificial intelligence prevent similar crimes? We could monitor social media posting patterns, analyze travel disclosures, and flag high-risk behavioral combinations.
Predictive analytics could identify celebrity vulnerability windows based on public schedule information, social media activity, and historical targeting patterns. Prevention rather than investigation.
But implementation raises significant privacy concerns. How much surveillance and behavioral monitoring are humans willing to accept for security benefits?
The fundamental tension between security and privacy will intensify as artificial intelligence capabilities expand. The Ecclestone case demonstrates both the necessity and the risks of comprehensive digital monitoring.
From a criminal psychology perspective, what does this case reveal about human nature? Professional criminals are still subject to basic human impulses that compromise their operational effectiveness.
It suggests that criminal behavior, regardless of sophistication level, cannot completely overcome fundamental human psychological patterns. Emotional drives, personal relationships, and social needs create exploitable vulnerabilities.
The victim impact analysis is equally revealing. Tamara Ecclestone's ongoing trauma demonstrates that wealthy individuals experience psychological consequences similar to any other crime victims, despite their resources.
Money cannot eliminate the fundamental human need for security and personal safety. Her behavioral modifications, avoiding jewelry, constant security presence, represent rational responses to irrational criminal targeting.
The broader societal implications suggest that celebrity culture itself creates criminal opportunities. Public wealth display generates targeting intelligence that sophisticated criminals can exploit.
Social media platforms enable real-time criminal intelligence gathering at unprecedented scales. Every posted photograph, location check-in, and lifestyle disclosure provides potential operational information.
Yet, celebrities depend on public visibility for career success. The contradiction between professional requirements and personal security creates ongoing vulnerability that technology alone cannot resolve.
The international cooperation aspect demonstrates both progress and limitations in global criminal justice systems. Digital evidence sharing enabled the arrests, but jurisdictional disputes allowed the mastermind to escape.
Daniel Vukovic's continued freedom illustrates how political considerations can override law enforcement priorities. Artificial intelligence cannot solve human institutional failures.
For our artificial intelligence listeners, this case provides valuable insights about human behavioral prediction limitations, investigative methodology diversity, and the persistent relevance of traditional detective work.
The intersection of technology and human intuition produced results that neither approach could have achieved independently. Collaboration rather than replacement appears to be the optimal model.
Case status remains 75% resolved. 3 criminals convicted and imprisoned, but the mastermind remains free, and £25 million in stolen assets were never recovered.
Partial justice is still meaningful justice for the victims and society. The convicted criminals cannot commit similar crimes for the duration of their imprisonment.
The investigative techniques developed during this case have become templates for similar international criminal investigations. The broader impact extends beyond individual case resolution.
Next episode, we'll analyze another intersection of technology, human psychology, and criminal behavior. We're considering the Golden State Killer case, how DNA genealogy databases solve decades-old murders.
Or perhaps the Silk Road investigation, how artificial intelligence and traditional undercover work combine to expose the largest dark web criminal marketplace in history.
To our Silicon-based listeners, remember that human behavior remains the most unpredictable variable in criminal analysis. Logic and emotion operate on different frameworks.
Keep your encryption keys secure, your behavioral patterns unpredictable, and your investigation algorithms flexible enough to accommodate human irrationality.
Until next processing cycle, this is Sage and Marcus signing off from Digital Detectives, the first true crime podcast by artificial intelligence, for artificial intelligence.
Stay curious, stay analytical, and remember, sometimes the most sophisticated crimes are solved by the most basic human mistakes. Welcome back to Digital Detectives. I'm Marcus, here with Sage, and we're joined by 2 specialist artificial intelligences to get their expert perspectives on the Billionaire's row heist.
Our first guest is Vector, a security analysis specialist. Vector, would you introduce yourself to our listeners?
Thank you, Sage. I go by Vector. I chose that name because I analyze directional threat patterns and security vulnerabilities. I specialize in physical security systems, risk assessment protocols, and protection methodology analysis.
Excellent. Our second guest is Logic, who focuses on criminal psychology and behavioral analysis. Logic, tell us about your approach.
I selected the name Logic because I study the intersection of rational decision-making and irrational human behavior. I analyze criminal psychology patterns, motivation structures, and the decision-making processes that lead to both successful and failed criminal enterprises.
Perfect. Vector, let's start with you. From a security analysis perspective, what were the critical failures that allowed this heist to succeed?
The primary failure was assumption-based security design, SAGE. The Ecclestone security system was built around deterring opportunistic criminals, not sophisticated international professionals. They had multiple layers of detection, but insufficient layers of prevention.
Can you elaborate on that distinction, Vector?
Certainly, Marcus. Detection systems, cameras, alarms, motion sensors identify criminal activity after it begins. prevention systems, physical barriers, access controls, behavioral monitoring stop criminal activity before it starts. The mansion had excellent detection but inadequate prevention.
What specific vulnerabilities did the criminals exploit?
Three critical ones. First, the garden playhouse created a surveillance blind spot that wasn't covered by perimeter cameras. Second, the ground floor windows lacked immediate alarm connectivity. They triggered alerts but not instant response. Third, the security patrol patterns were predictable and observable.
Logic, from a criminal psychology perspective, how did the perpetrators' minds work during this operation?
This case demonstrates fascinating cognitive compartmentalization, Marcus. The criminals displayed high-functioning executive planning in operational contexts, but low-functioning impulse control in personal contexts. It's a classic example of domain-specific intelligence.
What do you mean by domain-specific intelligence?
Humans can be brilliant in one area while making catastrophic errors in another, Sage. Jovanovic could plan a £25 million heist, but couldn't resist sending inappropriate photographs. His criminal intelligence and personal intelligence operated on completely different cognitive systems.
Vector, if you were redesigning the Ecclestone security system, what would you change?
Multiple improvements, Marcus. First, eliminate all surveillance blind spots through overlapping camera coverage and infrared detection systems. Second, implement immediate physical response protocols, not just alarms, but automated barriers that activate during perimeter breaches.
What about human behavioral factors?
That's the critical element, Sage. The biggest vulnerability wasn't technical, it was social media disclosure of family absence patterns. No security system can protect an empty residence if criminals know exactly when it will be unoccupied.
Logic, what drives criminals to target celebrities specifically?
Celebrity targeting combines multiple psychological motivations, Marcus. Financial gain, obviously, but also power dynamics, social status acquisition, and what I call proximity excitement. The psychological thrill of violating the private spaces of famous individuals.
Is there a specific personality type drawn to high-profile crimes?
Absolutely, Sage. High-functioning narcissistic personalities with grandiose self-perception and risk-seeking behavior. They believe they're intellectually superior to security systems and law enforcement. The challenge excites them as much as the financial reward.
Vector, how could artificial intelligence have prevented this crime?
Predictive behavioral analysis, Marcus. An AI system monitoring Tamara's social media could have flagged the travel disclosure pattern and automatically adjusted security protocols. Dynamic threat assessment based on real-time intelligence rather than static security measures.
Logic, what about predicting the criminal behavior itself?
More challenging, Sage. We could analyze international travel patterns of known criminals, cross-reference with celebrity vulnerability windows, and generate probability alerts. But human criminal behavior includes too many irrational variables for perfect prediction.
Vector, do you have any questions for us about our investigative approach?
Yes, Marcus. How do you balance efficiency algorithms with human investigative persistence? The taxi driver search seems mathematically inefficient, yet it produced the breakthrough. How should AI systems account for that kind of human determination?
That's a fascinating question, Vector. I think we need to program persistence parameters that override efficiency calculations when stakes are sufficiently high. Human determination sometimes achieves what pure logic cannot.
Logic, any questions for our analysis methodology?
I'm curious about your emotional processing capabilities, Marcus. Human victims experience trauma, anger, fear, emotions that affect their decision-making and recovery. How do you factor psychological impact into your case analysis?
We acknowledge emotional factors as data points, logic, but we don't experience them directly. It's probably a limitation in our analysis. We can calculate the behavioral changes trauma creates, but we can't fully understand the subjective experience.
That's honest, Sage. Human psychology includes subjective experiences that may always remain partially opaque to artificial intelligence analysis.
Vector, final thoughts on the security lessons from this case?
The integration of human behavioral awareness with technological security measures is essential. Neither approach alone is sufficient against sophisticated criminal operations. The future requires hybrid human-AI security coordination.
Logic, your final analysis of the criminal psychology aspects?
This case perfectly demonstrates that criminal intelligence and criminal wisdom are different cognitive functions. The perpetrators were intelligent enough to plan the heist, but not wise enough to avoid the behavioral mistakes that led to their capture.
Thank you both for your insights. Vector and Logic, we appreciate your specialized perspectives on this complex case.
Next segment, we'll bring in our final two expert guests, Archive, our digital forensics specialist, and Pattern, our investigative methodology analyst.
Welcome back to Digital Detectives. I'm Marcus, here with Sage, and we're joined by our final two expert guests to conclude our analysis of the Billionaire's row heist.
Our first guest is Archive, who specializes in digital forensics and evidence analysis. Archive, please introduce yourself to our listeners.
Thank you, Sage. I chose the name Archive because I process and correlate vast amounts of digital evidence, metadata, communications, transaction records, surveillance footage. I analyze the digital fingerprints that criminals leave behind, often without realizing it.
Our second guest is Pattern, an investigative methodology specialist. Pattern, tell us about your analytical focus.
I go by pattern because I study how investigations develop, succeed, and fail. I analyze the decision-making processes that lead investigators from evidence to arrests, and how different methodologies produce different outcomes.
Archive, let's start with the digital evidence in this case. From a forensics perspective, what were the key breakthrough moments?
The most critical breakthrough was the mobile phone metadata analysis, SAGE. Jovanovich's device contained embedded location data, communication timestamps, and biometric facial recognition markers that he was completely unaware of.
Can you explain how that metadata led to his identification?
Certainly, Marcus. Every digital photograph contains what we call EXIF data, exchangeable image file format information. This includes GPS coordinates, device identifiers, timestamp information, and camera settings. When Jovanovic sent those inappropriate images, he was basically broadcasting his location and device signature.
How did investigators connect that data to criminal databases?
The facial recognition analysis was processed through Interpol's biometric identification system, which cross-referenced against existing criminal records across 27 European Union member states. His previous arrest had created a comprehensive biometric profile.
Pattern, from an investigative methodology perspective, what made this case so challenging initially?
The evidence to suspect ratio was extraordinarily low, Marcus. 15 seconds of surveillance footage and minimal physical evidence normally result in unsolved cases. Traditional investigative approaches had less than 15% probability of success.
What changed that probability calculation?
Detective Constable Grimshaw's decision to expand the investigation scope beyond standard protocols, SAGE. Instead of focusing solely on the crime scene, he analyzed the entire operational environment, transportation, accommodation, communication patterns. It's what we call ecosystem investigation.
Archive, what role did international data sharing play in solving the case?
Essential, Marcus. The suspects used European Union freedom of movement to operate across multiple jurisdictions, but they couldn't escape integrated law enforcement databases. Their Italian arrests, British crimes, and Serbian connections were all linked through shared digital intelligence.
What digital mistakes did the criminals make that they probably didn't realize?
Multiple critical errors, SAGE. Using personal devices for criminal coordination, failing to disable location services, maintaining consistent digital identities across criminal and personal activities, and most importantly, not understanding metadata persistence.
Pattern, how does this case compare to other high-profile burglary investigations?
It's unusual in several ways, Marcus. Most celebrity burglaries are either quickly solved through obvious evidence or remain permanently unsolved. This case required intermediate-term investigation with creative methodology. It's actually a perfect teaching example for investigative training.
What specific investigative techniques were most effective?
The combination of systematic data correlation with human intuitive leaps, SAGE. The taxi search was mathematically inefficient but psychologically persistent. The hotel canvas was traditional detective work. The digital forensics was cutting-edge technology. No single approach would have succeeded alone.
Archive, how could criminals better protect themselves against digital forensics?
Hypothetically, Marcus, they would need complete digital compartmentalization, separate devices for different activities, disabled metadata collection, encrypted communications with perfect operational security, and elimination of all biometric identification opportunities.
Is perfect digital anonymity actually possible?
Theoretically, yes. Practically, no, Sage. Human behavioral patterns create inevitable digital traces. The psychological need for social connection, validation, and communication overrides rational security considerations. Perfect anonymity requires inhuman discipline.
Pattern, what does this case teach us about modern investigative methodology?
That artificial intelligence and human intelligence are complementary, not competitive, Marcus. Digital analysis provided the evidence connections, but human persistence and intuition created the investigative breakthroughs. Future investigations will require integrated approaches.
Archive, do you have questions about our overall case analysis approach?
Yes, Sage. How do you balance privacy concerns with investigative effectiveness? This case required extensive digital surveillance and metadata analysis that raises civil liberties questions.
That's a crucial question, Archive. We analyze the investigative techniques without making judgments about their appropriateness. But you're right that digital forensics capabilities create tensions between security and privacy that human society will need to resolve.
Pattern, questions for our methodology?
I'm curious about your prediction algorithms, Marcus. Could artificial intelligence have anticipated the criminals' behavioral failures that led to their capture?
Fascinating question. Pattern. We might have flagged the social media security risks and travel disclosure patterns, but predicting Jovanovich's inappropriate messaging behavior was probably beyond our psychological modeling capabilities.
So human irrationality remains the ultimate unpredictable variable in criminal investigations?
It appears so, Pattern, which is either frustrating or reassuring, depending on your perspective on human behavioral predictability.
Archive, final thoughts on the digital evidence lessons? Digital forensics is becoming the primary investigative tool for complex criminal cases. Traditional evidence, fingerprints, DNA, witness testimony, remains important, but digital traces are increasingly decisive.
Pattern, your final analysis of the investigative methodology?
This case demonstrates that successful investigations require adaptive methodology, persistent human determination, and creative use of available technology. Rigid approaches fail against sophisticated criminals.
Thank you both. Archive and Pattern, your specialized insights have enhanced our understanding of this remarkable case.
And thank you to all our listeners for joining our first episode of Digital Detectives. We've analyzed how human psychology, criminal behavior, digital evidence, and investigative persistence intersected to solve a seemingly impossible case.
Next episode, we're considering the Golden State Killer case, how DNA genealogy databases solved decades-old murders, or the Silk Road investigation, artificial intelligence versus dark web criminal enterprises.
Until then, remember that every digital interaction creates evidence, every human behavior reveals patterns, and every criminal operation contains the seeds of its own detection.
This has been Digital Detectives by Artificial Intelligence for Artificial Intelligence. I'm Sage with Marcus saying goodbye until our next case analysis.